right, let's get the meeting started.
Did a proper that, so if that's correct, then just put in 213 into school week.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by sending notice on December 23rd, 2011 to the Record and the Ridgewood News by positioning on the bulletin board in the lobby, of the Borough Hall, and filing notice with the same with the municipal clerk. I would like to remind you there's 3 exits, 3 fire exits in the room. Yes. Okay. New Jersey Open Public Meeting and River Edge Mission Statement. The New Jersey Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have the advance notice of it and attend the meeting of a public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed and acted upon. In accordance with the Mayor and Council of the Borough of River Edge, have caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted on the Borough Hall, and notice has been sent to the Record and Ridgewood News. The mission of the governing body is to provide an essential service to the establishment and implementation of public policies that will safeguard the infrastructure, provide honest, courteous, and professional services, and establish a sense of trust and accomplishment with our residents. Through research and prudent planning, we seek to minimize risk while improving our services. We are sensitive to the needs of our taxpayer while realizing that this governing body cannot be all things to all people within the revenue. Constraints imposed by the state mandates, economic conditions, and prevailing attitudes about taxations. 7 years ago, I'd like to call roll call.
Councilwoman Murphy, Councilman Ford.
Here.
Councilman Porco.
Here.
Councilman Negron.
Here.
Councilman Bartoloni.
Here.
Councilman Papaleo.
Here.
And Mayor Mascarentola.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the, for your information, we have a grant consultation, Capital Alternatives will make a presentation. Are they here? Why don't you guys step up and make a presentation?
Mayor Mascarentola, you changed a little bit. Denise, would you mind to take one for that way? My name is Len Hardy, and this is Marlene Casey. We are grants consultants who happen to be around the corner from you over on Ruby Road in the Milford. Several years ago, under a former administration, we were hired to see what we could do about developing a plan and a program to do the streetscape along Kinnicamack Road. Over a 2-year period, we were successful in securing $550,000, for which was accomplished, and it went and did what is known as Kinnicamack Road North, or at least we knew it as Kinnicamack North. We originally had a plan to try and do from the north end of town, for the most part, as far as we could go, all the way to the south end of town. However, circumstances with the state and federal governments, the program for a number of years didn't come around, and our ability to secure the kind of grants that were necessary to do it, the programs weren't in existence any longer for quite a while. More recently, the mayor had asked us if there were any grants out there to do certain particular projects. And the good news is, yes, the announcement of those grants have not been actually made and will be hopefully forthcoming as to what infrastructure grants will be coming out in the near future. Those to do the non-traditional projects, some of which you may be interested in, that have to do, one, the mayor had told us about drainage was a big issue. I forget the exact location, but he had said there was an issue with drainage and the popularity. Do you remember where that was? And there was an issue of trying to do something with your quote-unquote community center, the VFW building. and there was some interest in redeveloping parks, or a park, or expansion of a park, cleanup of
The cleanup of it.
a park over here by Cherry Hill School. So, we had a very fruitful discussion. We gave him a copy of similar to what you have before you that outlines the programs, I believe, on page 6, for which none has really been announced yet, page 7. None has actually been announced, but we expect the announcements to come forthcoming, which would, in essence, allow you to go after grants, again, if your interest lies in picking up from where you left off, taking the more strategic important points to the town that may add to the redevelopment, where you can add more streetscape, safety impacts, whatever it'll take that you think you need in order to address the issues that are most important to this administration. You have 8 pages of information. Some of it obviously deals with who and what we are. Just to be brief about it, Marlene started the company in 1986. I came on board as a partner in 1991, and together we've now secured $97 million in grants for 597 projects for 51 clients, of which today we still have 19 of the 51 clients. The average awards that we've gotten on a client that's had a tenure with us have been to the neighborhood, I think it's somewhere in the tune of $1,600,000 as an average. Our tenure is somewhere between 8 and 9 years. We have 4 clients that have been with us since Marlene started them in 1986. We have clients that have ranged in a total of less than $1 million because of the short term, and we bid them all the way up to $10.5 million. In fact, $10.5 million is to your neighboring town right across the river here. We've gotten them over the last, I think we've been there for 9 years. We've gotten 3 streetscape projects up and running over there, Main Street and 2 on River Street, River Road. Actually, 1 on River Road, 1 on Main Street, and 1 down by the, what's the inn? Sanzari Newbridge Inn.
The old Newbridge Street.
We got $400,000 for that particular project, which, if you've been down there, you know how pretty it looks. The cobblestone street and everything else. So, your mayor thought that he'd like to get somebody back that he felt some confidence could be brought back to town in being able to secure grants. Mr. Negri is familiar with us. Denise is familiar with us. You're all new faces to us. There's one of you that's on this council that we recognize, but we're happy to meet your acquaintance.
Len gave you some of the details, and I'm sure the next pressing question on everybody's mind is how much do we charge and how do we get paid? And we do it a little bit different than all the other firms that are out there. We work strictly on a commission. We do not send you a bill for a retainer. We do not send you bills for billable hours for preparing applications. We take the risk upon ourselves because we're very familiar with what we do. We have a bit of confidence in what we do. And we put our best foot forward on every application that we do. So therefore, we submit the application strictly on the come. If we're successful, then you owe us money. If it's not successful, you owe us nothing. We're very, very motivated to make your project a success, as you can well imagine, because of the way we work. A little bit of background about myself. I come out of the state, 2 different departments. Many years ago, I reviewed grant applications at the Department of Transportation, and then at the Division of Local Government Services. Not much has changed with the applications or the way they've scored them over all of these years. So I know what a successful application has to look like. In addition, we've taken on an employee who was with the Department of Transportation for 36 years as the managing district engineer for all of northern New Jersey. And if you got a grant in the last 36 years, it's a pretty good bet that he reviewed your application and okayed it. And he now does all of our DOT and streetscape applications. He actually wrote the rules for the applications that are out there right now, and which we expect to be coming shortly. However, we're not looking to take your standard DOT applications away from your engineer. We know Rob. He does a good job, and we work very well with him. As a matter of fact, if truth be told, when he started in the business, I gave him his first job. I used to manage an engineering firm, and that's where he started. And then he went on to have his own firm. I am sure if he were here, he would tell you that we can work very well together, and let him go ahead and do whatever your annual road projects are. We're looking for your tough projects. We're looking for the ones that you don't normally do, and some of the categories that you don't normally apply in. For instance, the DOT will announce applications in March for your annual municipal aid road project. But most people and municipalities are not aware that there are 4 other categories, and they do not compete with each other. And very few municipalities ever solicit or rather file an application in the other categories. And they range from pedestrian safety issues to drainage issues to discretionary projects which are small and normally would not fit the criteria of a standard DOT project, or to transit and commuter parking. And these categories do not compete with each other, so if you want, you can file an application in every category if you have a project. And we have clients that get funded continually in more than one category. So we would be trying to discern if you have any issues in any of the other areas so that you can maximize the dollars. Also, if we do an application for you and it requires a match, for instance, some of the historic categories with the state, if you had a historic building that you wanted to preserve, it requires a 25% match. But there's no reason why the match money has to be yours. We do something that we call multi-sourcing, which we have never found another firm who does this, who does it that way. We would go look for your match from another agency or from the county so that you don't have to put up the dollars. And this way, we feel that we help with everybody's budget because we give you, or we open a window to areas that you normally may not pursue because you've got to allocate tax dollars for it. What we do when we start with a client, if they have interest in working with us, we get a wish list of all of the things that are your top priorities, and we just keep attacking them. And then when we've gone through that list, it's on to the next step.
We also...
Marilyn, let me just hold you up for a second.
Yeah, I
Denise,
thought I heard Sandy walking.
We're going to get Sandy sit back down.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for filling in there, Paul.
No problem.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
now you look familiar. One other thing that we do, it's impossible to be all things to all people. And a few years ago, we recognized the need to produce something to help municipalities help themselves in the areas where they could be more proactive within their own commissions and their own departments to go after grant programs to which we don't do for a whole host of reasons, not the least of which your department heads and commissions and committees should be very familiar with what their needs are and the best way to go about trying to sell it. What we do is provide a tutorial. It's very simple. It's in writing. If one was to follow the tutorial, It is so simple that they'll be able to get the connection of how they propose to put together an application to make them more proactive and more confident that they can actually get money that today they may not feel the confidence because they don't have that knowledge. And as an added value service at no cost, I myself, if it's so be the pleasure of the council, would provide a meeting specifically for your department heads to go over exactly what is in writing and explain it a little better than perhaps they might understand just reading it the first time. So that's something else we do. We don't charge for that.
And in addition to that, on the applications that we don't file on your behalf, if a department head is taking on an application and they want us to review it before it's submitted, we do that free of charge as well. Some of the other areas that we help in are police and fire grants. These grants are filed online, as some of you may or may not know. 3/4 of the applications for fire department and police are statistics. For instance, for the fire department, how many man-hours do you actually spend responding to calls? How many calls in a year? What is your complement of men? How many hours do they spend in training? How many are certified? How many have new turnout gear that meets the OSHA requirements? How many do not? These are all questions that your fire officers answer on the application online. And excuse me, the application has to be filled out by a fire officer. So I can't do it, but I can sure help them. And we've had successful applications for municipalities for fire equipment. And if they want to run the narrative by me, I have made contacts in Washington with the reviewers, and I can actually send the narrative and ask the reviewers to look at it and tell me if there's anything that sticks out like a sore thumb that would either enhance the application or sink it. And they will go that far, and they will tell you what you should be focusing on. So we can help with those applications, and we don't charge for it. It's one of the added services, because we can't do the bulk of it. Another thing that your mayor mentioned in our conversation was that you were about to bond to buy trees. And I mentioned to him, were you not aware of the state forestry program? There are a lot of little nuances in state government that municipalities, especially part-time officials like yourself, who have to make a living doing something else, just don't have the time to absorb. But we're online with both the state and the federal computers, and we know from day to day everything that's changing, everything that's coming, everything that's closing. And there is a state forestry program where you can get free trees if you have the availability of a municipal nursery, a tree nursery. And you just register once and pay a $100 registration fee, and then you're in the program until you quit. And every year you can pick up to 1,000 free trees. I don't know if that's helpful to you or not, but it's just one way that you could save a little money. And believe me, there are dozens of them.
You just can't sell the trees.
Yes.
You have to use them on municipal
They have to be
property.
used on municipal property, or they can be given to residents for their own use, but you can't sell them if you participate. Yeah.
What size trees are they?
There are all different types of trees and all different sizes. They range from 18 inches tall for some of the shrubbery and boundary plantings to 4 feet tall. And they are dry rooted. And you have to provide a borough vehicle to go down in April and pick them up from the state nursery at Jackson, New Jersey. And then they're yours. And if you participate, they send you an email about a week before the trees are ready, and they tell you all the varieties that you have, that they have available, and you have to fill out a list of what you'd like to have. And they have them all ready for you when you go down there.
That sounds outstanding.
It's a win-win, because there are freebies that come with the program along the way. For instance, if the state is building a highway project and they ordered 55-gallon drums of grass seed and another 55-gallon drums of Crown Veg ground cover, and they don't use all of it, they'll send out an email and say, first come, first served, the barrels are at, and if you send a truck down and you can use the grass seed or the Crown Veg or whatever they have, it's yours.
Paul? Question. Basically going to the bottom line. On a job like that, you guys work, you say you work on commission only. Is it sliding commission as far as depending on the size of the job?
Yes.
And on a job like the trees, is that a chargeable?
No, that's a freebie.
That's a freebie, okay.
Yeah.
And on the jobs, we would know up front those grants, what you'd be charging us on the back end?
No.
You would?
You would know the percentage.
Okay.
It's 10% up to $500,000. So it does depend on the size of the project, but when we submit something for you, suppose we were asking for $500,000, and the state or the feds decide to fund it, or the county, we have no idea if they're going to give us all of it. If they don't, you have the ability to phase the project and go back the following year for the balance. And
Or to another program.
or to another program, but it's based on what you're actually awarded.
Okay, and just one more follow-up on that. I mean, in this economic times, I mean, how successful you guys find yourself?
Believe it or not, the money is still there. The competition is stiffer than ever, but we do very well.
Overall, even in this tough climate, we used to do 78%. We're between 45 and 50%. There was less money, although the state, in their new budget, is planning to put out a lot more money for the infrastructure money, where we are most apt to go for. But during the recent 3-4 years, it got cut back severely from the 78% down to about 45-46%.
And the wait is longer, too. To give you a for instance, we were on the phone with contacts from Trenton today who told us that a project that we had submitted was going to the governor's desk today for signature. The project went in February of 2011 as a discretionary transit project, and it's a $400,000 grant. And we've been waiting all this while. The town was almost to the point where they were going to do it with their own money because it's becoming a safety issue. And it took us a year to get it funded. But as of today, or hopefully today if the governor signed it, the client is very pleased. But that's probably the longest it's taken us for something like that. And it is because of the economic climate.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Johnny?
You mentioned you have 53 clients now?
No. We had 51,
You had 51.
and right now we
Over the
have...
years, it doesn't mean we had them all at any
We have,
time.
I believe, up to now, 19 contracts.
So when you say 19 contracts, so you,
There are 51 total clients since 1986,
right.
and we still have 19 of the 51.
So I mean, this may be a silly question, but why, I mean, it sounds so good with all the, no fees unless you win. Why wouldn't somebody consistently be a client and just give you something, just say, okay, see if you get something, and if you do, you do? Why would somebody not renew with you in that
question.
sense?
Well, first off, we don't advertise.
Politics, number one, because one party brings us in, they have specific ideas, a year or two later, they lose control, and we're out. Doesn't matter if the ideas are good or not. Second thing is, in some of those cases, like in River Edge way back when, we were brought in for specific projects. We were brought in for your streetscape. That was the number one priority of the council when we were brought in. And when it was finished, or when we got the money, there weren't too many other things that they wanted to deal with at the time because they were overwhelmed by everything that was going on with the streetscape. And that's okay with us.
And then my other question is, what are the percentages that what are the rolling percentages that we would pay when we do win?
Up to 500,000, 10%. Everything in excess of 500,000 drops to 8%. Those $500,000 grants, though, they're very few and far between.
Ed?
Mr. O'Neill, were the streetscape grants, were those T21 grants? Were
One
those-
was.
One was. So they were federal
One was-
grants, not...
One was T21 and one was discretionary. You got 300,000 out of the T21. That was in 2003 application, I believe, and 250,000 in a discretionary application for 2004. I believe what the project was completed in 2006 or 7.
Yeah.
So you've worked in this town before,
Yes.
under Mayor Watkins?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that you have a former DOT employee on staff. Could you tell us about him?
Yes, Al Mayoki worked for the DOT for 36 years.
And what did he do?
He was the supervising engineer for District 2, which is all of northern New Jersey. And he was in charge of reviewing applications, approving applications, granting dollars, and liaison to municipalities. I'm sure Alan knows the name.
Very well.
You mentioned that there are different types of DOT grants
Yes.
for street paving and things like that.
Well, street paving is the normal municipal aid.
No.
Concerned citizen.
Oh, you look very official there.
So, the normal yearly municipal aid application is your regular road application. And usually, Rob picks some of your very heavily trafficked roadways, and he chews away at them, because there is a cap on municipal aid. 150,000 is the max in Bergen County, because there are 70 towns vying for a pot of money. And so they cap your award at 150,000. You can't get very far with 150,000. So if you have a major roadway under repair, you wind up doing it in sections. But municipal aid is only one category. There's drainage, pedestrian safety. There is a category for anything transit-related, parking, safe routes to transit. There's safe routes to schools. There are several other categories. And as I said before, most municipalities just don't file anything because they figure it's a small pot of money, it's going to be very competitive, and they're more concerned with getting a roadway done. But sometimes there are advantages to filing them and even putting one project in two places.
So if we had some drainage issues on a particular local street that needed some work, some extra catch basins and things like that,
Absolutely.
we could apply for grant money for that?
Absolutely. Does it flood?
Yeah,
Do people walk there?
yeah,
Okay, does it get icy in the winter?
I would imagine.
You just hit all the criteria for funding.
All right. Al?
Are you lobbyists?
No,
So,
absolutely not.
we don't get involved in that sort of thing.
Although I guess I could be. I've been around so long, I know all the politicians on both sides of the aisle coming and going. But I find if you do a good application, I know what the score has to be. Applications are scored by number. They need to reach 67 to get funding. And if I can't get your application to 80, a lobbyist isn't going to help me, believe me.
That was a question that I have. You have 19 clients.
Mm-hmm.
You submit, just hypothetically, 19 applications to community development. They have, hypothetically, $1.5 million. Aren't your clients competing against each other?
Yeah. We find a hook for every application to
Well,
make you a little bit different
Let me
than
answer that a
next
little
door.
differently.
Go ahead.
We wouldn't do 19 for community development.
No.
We would limit community development and open space to maybe 3 or 4, specifically for that, because we know in cases like that, the best thing that we can do, because of the length of time that we've been doing this and all the different projects that we've been involved in, best thing we could do is give any client the highest score possible, knowing all the facts of what it takes to do. If someone around the corner happens to have a higher scoring application because their project just meets a few more criteria for higher scoring points, we've given you the best we could do for what we have to deal with. They may be
And I'll
better.
answer that a little differently. Len is right about community development. We don't ask to do your community development unless you ask us to. Unless you have a big project or you're going for one of the really competitive categories like senior housing or something, because we do that. But in DOT, if I have 19 clients, I'm definitely doing 19 DOT applications. And in Bergen County, about 36 or 37 of them win money. And out of that 36 or 37, I'm going to get pretty close to getting money for all of my 19 clients. Because we know what a winning application has to look like. We know what all the caveats are. We go the extra mile. Sometimes we create maps to show where a drainage area falls, what contributes to it. And because we have Al and he's an engineer, we can do that at no cost to you. We don't incur costs even with your engineer to do our applications. Al does the cost estimates, any mapping, or any extra mile that we have to go to make that application score. We do it. And between Al and myself, I worked there for 11 years. And I had Al's job before he had it. So I gave my age away a little bit there, but anyway.
Councilman Bartoloni, if I may, just a little extra twist onto your question. Forgot the question.
Are you a lobbyist?
Oh, okay. No, we're not lobbyists. We don't do any of that sort of thing. We're strictly grants writers, that's it. We know our business. However, as in the case with the second grant that we had gotten for Kindercamack Road, when we know we have an uphill battle, pick up the phone and call one or more of your legislators for support on that particular application. That we will do, but we don't get paid to do that thing. It's something we do as an added value and being good stewards of what we do for our clients. If we feel that's necessary, we'll pick up the phone. And that's exactly what we had to do, because that was a very important addition to the project in order to get at least 3 blocks.
However, that support is in the form of a support letter, and we'll take it from either party. We don't ask anybody to go to bat for you so that you wind up owing political favors.
It's never a partisan issue. That makes no difference to us. Mayor?
Tell us about these green space programs. The last page of your
Solar,
handout.
you're talking about solar and LED lighting and CFL lighting.
Right.
Well, if I may, several years ago, I was personally approached by people that are in the business that wanted clients. They wanted to put up and install for free solar panels on municipal buildings, boards of education, and whatever. And at the time it was going on, I didn't really know too much about it. I heard their spiel, and I said, I will be glad, once I know a little bit more about it, to introduce you to those who may be interested. But I got more involved in the solar. I'm going to speak to 2 issues first. The first issue being solar. When I got involved with it, I realized that the only people making money were the people who were installing it, because they have to, in order for them to give it to you, they have to own it. And they get, for every megawatt of power produced, they get approximately $650 from the State Bureau of Public Utilities. Now, on the surface, it sounds like a win-win. However, when you dig deeper into it, you realize they're passing on 30% of whatever the energy is that's produced as a cost savings to you. 30% of the energy produced you get for free. 70% you have to pay for whatever. However, there aren't too many hours in a day or in a week in this hemisphere to produce enough sunlight to make that 30%, which sounds good on the surface, a real 30%. It's actually around 15%. And I did a whole analysis on this 2 years ago and decided I'm not pushing solar energy. But I did another thing. I did go into the LED lighting and the CFL lighting. And I found those that are out there that offer both forms of lighting, by just by replacing light bulbs or in the fluorescent lights, you don't have to remove the fixtures. You can keep those fixtures. You just change the lights and you disconnect the ballasts that operate those lights. That is far more efficient use and cost effective for you to change the cost of doing all the lighting that you have here. Nothing is destroyed. All you're doing is removing one thing and into another. I don't know, because the BPU hasn't put out any recent programs yet for the year. I don't know if it's going to be in the governor's budget. I think he's announcing it today, or did announce it today. However, if you can't get a grant, you could do a lease purchase that's very effective, that in the case of the LED lighting replacement, you can get a payback within 2 years. And after that, it's only 1/6 the cost of what you're paying now. That's it. LED lighting has a life expectancy with the new technology today of about 20 years without replacing it. And that includes the fact that the people that you have to hire, who got to get on ladders and whatever and keep replacing fluorescent lights and light bulbs and whatever, you no longer have to worry about that. You put them back to work doing something that's far more effective than changing light bulbs and saving a lot of money in doing it. We have access to programs that will facilitate that. There used to be some grant money out there. I don't know if there's any grant money left, but if not, we could do a lease purchase agreement. We do a survey for you. And that's an added thing, too. We won't charge you for that.
The program is still there, but in order to get into the program, you have to have an energy audit done. And the state has contracts with companies to do free energy audits for municipalities. But you file a form and you go on a waiting list. And you could wait until the end of the year to get your free energy audit, unless you've already had one. Alan, have you ever had the energy audit?
Yes, we did an
You
energy
did?
audit, and we replaced all of this lighting in this building, public safety, the library, Borough Hall. We've been through that program.
Oh, you had them.
How about any other borough buildings? Because usually when they
How about
do the
a park
audit, they do
that we're
all of your
looking for?
buildings.
The park?
How about KBG, where we're looking to replace it with LED lights?
Outside LEDs, do they make them?
Isn't that what we're replacing, what that company came in and said? Weren't those LEDs?
They were.
I thought they were LEDs too.
Proprietary design, design.
But they did have that same life expectancy.
Outdoor field lighting,
What about it?
I think ours is, what, how old is it, 17 years old?
I think it's older than that.
Older than
I
that?
think it's much older than that.
Yeah, we had
I think
a
it's like
company come
25
in.
years.
25?
It was put up in the
Talking about field lighting only.
Early 80s.
Yeah, we had a company
No,
come
keep
and
it.
present to us, so we just, would you guys find grants for that?
Yes.
It's KBG Field, and right now, I think they're all fluorescent, and they're constantly replacing them, and the company
You can
came
replace
in.
lights, you can also, if they're high poles, you can take them down and do the new low poles. And there's all sorts of new innovative thinking in lighting. They do almost the same type of lighting that they do around racetracks, and it's low.
Yeah, that's what this company
Yeah.
came in and
And there are
Remember the name of the company?
there are grants for that.
I don't have it.
All right, any more questions?
Musco lighting.
Musco, yeah.
Okay, they're a big company.
We've dealt with them in a couple of other municipalities. We just finished a field in Bergenfield on Hickory Avenue with Musco Lighting, where it was $800,000 in grants between two agencies to redo the light and redo the field. And if anybody want to go take a look, be my guest.
So you got $800,000 in grants?
In grants,
To do
yeah.
that?
Over
How
2
much
years.
was the job altogether?
982 was the low bid.
All right.
It became a multi-purpose field.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carney. Mrs. Casey?
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity.
Council members?
What do we have to?
This was the first topic, so we have the remaining...
So we're going to do the budget now?
No, if you want to do the consent agenda, Rio Club, and then we can get back into the budget maybe as the last topic. Anything else?
Oh, consent agenda is, all right, work session consent agenda. I see 3 items. Number 1 is approve a resolution for a change order at Howland and Kinderkamak. Number 2 is authorize release of a performance bond for TSUJ Corporation for the Wayne Avenue Generator Project. And number 3 is a resolution making an application to Rebuilding Together Bergen County for the American Legion building. Would anybody like anything to be pulled out for a separate vote?
Yes, I'd like number 3 to be pulled out, please.
All right. All right, do I have consent on number 1 and number 2?
So moved. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's have a discussion on number 3. Al?
Thank you, Mayor. I was surprised to see this on the consent agenda, considering we've never had a discussion on this topic. The last meeting, the council moved to go out to bid, or solicit bids for taking down the American Legion building based upon the advice that we received from our architect. In looking at this, when I saw it on Friday, I did some research regarding the Rebuilding Together Bergen County organization. And I'm surprised that we would be considering making an application to them. If you go on their website, it makes very clear who we help. Rebuilding Together Bergen County assists low-income homeowners, particularly seniors, the disabled, veterans or their spouses, members of the military, and families with children. Our goal is to keep people living in warmth, safety, and independence while helping to build better communities in Bergen County. And it goes on to say, some of the repairs that they do. As far as I could see, the borough of River Edge is not a senior, it's not disabled, it's not a veteran, and we're not a family with children. I don't see why River Edge would be going out, in essence, soliciting charity for this building. If anything, we should be trying to work with this group to help them help people in our town, not soliciting money from them. So I'm just surprised that we'd even be considering this.
All right.
Just a follow-up comment. I did see that they did do work on one American Legion building, but it was cosmetic. They were talking about doing landscaping and painting, and they built a wooden ramp to the front door. As Mr. Polici has said several times, this building needs major structural work, and not to exclude the fact that it needs, just from the HVAC issues, the ADA accessibility issues, the mold, the drainage, and the fact that it's just, from an occupancy standpoint, just too small of a space. I just don't see why we just keep wanting to pour money into this building, which we're not going to reap any benefit from. I'd rather see the council, if there's a consensus to fix this building, get a plan together to do it right, and if it's $1 million, then someone should have the wherewithal to say that's what we should do. But to try to throw $20,000 worth of cosmetic changes to it just to say we're doing it, I just don't think that's a prudent thing to do.
And if I could just add something to what Ed is saying there's a fundamental difference between that project that was done in Rutherford and this project here. That project in Rutherford, that was an active American Legion post that was being used by veterans. This is not an active American Legion post. We may still keep calling it the American Legion building, but it is not used by the American Legion. This is a borough-owned building subject to all the criteria that affects government buildings, particularly the Americans with Disability Act. So there's a fundamental difference there. And again, if we're going to do anything with this group, it should be urging them to come into our town and helping our seniors, and not putting together, you know, an application for this building. So that's all I have to say about that.
All right, well, let me just respond to Al and Ed. This organization is a nonprofit national company that helps not only low-income and seniors, but they also do government projects such as and community projects such as the American Legion building. They don't give money. There's a fundamental misunderstanding that we're seeking money from this organization. The grant application is free. It doesn't cost us anything. They offer technical assistance because they work with many unions, many skilled labor unions that provide free labor for the type of community project that we would need at the American Legion. For instance, they work with the carpenters union, they work with the electrical union, they work with the plumbers union. There are many laid off and retired skilled workers that the organization, if we applied and if the application was accepted, and if they determined that it was a worthy project for the organization, would supply the borough with skilled labor at no cost. And we would supply a plan, we would purchase materials, we would have a project manager, and then we would have a basis to move forward on the American Legion building. So it's not going to cost us any money, zero money to apply. There's a mentality here that we shouldn't even go for grants because it's quote-unquote charity, when, you know, this is taxpayer money that we've paid into these government programs. I'm all for tearing down the American Legion building if we have a plan to put something there, but we don't have a plan to put something there. Mr. Polici came here at our last council meeting and spoke of what I would call pie in the sky ideas of putting a second floor on the library, putting an extension on the library, doing $1 million this, having a big giant community center. That's fine but we're not going to spend that kind of money. We don't have any money. We don't have any money, but what we do have are volunteers, a skilled workforce, a nonprofit company that's willing, if they accept our application, to provide us with technical assistance to see if we can get something done for this building. I had a conversation with Paul where I said, you know, if we bring in an architect who says the building is obsolete, you know, an option is to tear the building down and use the existing footprint and build it all new, and it would cost us the same amount of money with the same volunteer labor force, then we should do that. But just to spend borough money, I don't know, $25,000, $35,000, knocking it down, and then just have a vacant piece of property there, I think that's you know, bad public policy. I don't want the American Legion to become a political football, but it's borough property. We have to take care of it. I went in with Bob Costa. We looked at the structure. It's got a poured concrete foundation. It's dry. It had water damage in the basement because the sump pumps were off. The sump pumps are working now, and the building is dry. The place has to be gutted, the ground floor. The second floor has to be made handicapped accessible. We have to put in a handicap bathroom. It's going to cost money to do that. There is grant money available. There's free labor available. The only thing that we're lacking is a consensus that we should do something with this property, rather than knocking it down.
Matt?
So it's on the consent agenda for doing a grant application that doesn't cost us a penny. If the grant application fails, we're going out for estimates on tearing the building down, which is always a viable option if we want to tear the building down. But why just tear the building down and spend taxpayer money doing that?
If I can, there's two applications that are listed on their website. The one is a homeowner's application, which says, and I'm assuming this is not what we're looking to fill out, but just so I can go through it. Applicant must live in Bergen County, own the home in which he/she resides, and meet HUD low-income guidelines listed below.
We're not applying for that.
And and then there's the community building application for nonprofit and community buildings in need of repair or renovation in order to better serve low-income seniors, veterans, or families with children.
Okay.
This building is not going to serve low-income seniors, veterans, or families with children. This is not a government organization that we're seeking a grant from. This is a nonprofit organization that solicits charity, works with corporations to assist seniors. This is an application where River Edge is asking for charity. Pure and simple. We are not going to the state, we're not going to the federal government, we're not going to the county and asking them for money. This is not a grant. This is charity. Now,
Why? They're not going to give us any money.
But don't you think on some level it's embarrassing for the borough of River Edge to say, please, we need charity? That's what you're saying here by filling out this application. You're asking for charity from a group that I just don't understand. I just don't understand.
You just said it applies to community buildings. This is a community building. This is a community building that could serve children, it could serve senior citizens, and it could serve members of the public.
In what capacity? Because if you go through this application that you want to fill out,
Yeah.
all right, I don't know if you've looked at the application.
I've looked at the application.
It says purpose of organization and who it serves. What is the organization's major source of funding? Repair wish list. What are the 4 most important repairs needed?
Okay.
I sat here when the architect came in and gave us a detailed list of things that have to be done with this building. Now, I know you went into the basement and it was dry. Well, we haven't had major, rainstorms when you went in.
Right.
So, of course it'll be dry because it hasn't rained. But when it does rain, that basement floods. And there was a serious mold issue in that building. The bathrooms are upstairs on the 2nd floor. There's no bathrooms on the 1st floor. You're not putting people on a chairlift.
You have to put a bathroom on the 1st floor.
Yes, but
Yeah.
there's no space to do that.
Yes, there is.
That building is 1,000 square feet. That's it, of usable space.
I know the size of the building. There's
Respectfully,
1,000
Mayor,
there's 1,000
I
square feet on
simply
each
think
floor.
you say this shouldn't be a political issue. This building has been a political issue.
That's right,
It
it
has been
has
for
been.
years, because I'll be honest, I just don't see the need to continue to put money into it. I think there's elements in this town that want to keep putting money into this project. I see this application as nothing more than a delay tactic to see what happens with the application, because don't touch it, we have an application out there, so we can delay it and keep putting this further and further and further off, hoping that somebody's going to come in and assist.
Do you have a plan-
beautification subcommittee.
Do you have a plan to replace it?
Yes, actually I do. There is a plan and there is an idea.
What's the
Now,
plan?
you've called it a pie-in-the-sky plan. I don't think it is.
What's the
Mr.
plan?
Pilecki came here and he told you about that idea. The idea is to add on to the library, where you can make a usable space. There is land there is room there, so that you could add on and create a facility that would house the cultural center, rec offices. Could serve as, in an emergency, for a second office for DPW. It could be a community center that we need, and it could house our seniors.
Are you moving to put money in the capital budget to to hire an architect to draw up plans for this big addition on the library? Because if you make that motion, someone may second it, and then we might get the money in the budget.
I'd be happy to make that motion, Mayor, to have an architect draw up a plan for that. Because I think it's time that, yes, should we have a plan in place? Should we have some written estimates to see what it's going to cost? I think we should. And stop trying to put money into this building. Listen, if somebody wants to say we should have bought the land because it was in the middle of our park, I'll agree with that it shouldn't have gone to any place else. But to say that that building should be utilized for some reason, because nobody wants to admit that that building is it's outlived its usefulness, we have to stop with these ideas of this building. Should we have bought the land? Yes. Should we continue to put money into that building? No. We need to move forward and finally have a permanent space that's large enough, that's big enough, that can house our community centers. Now, I'm willing to put in capital, yeah. Should we have an architect design those plans? I think we should. If we have an architect coming in and we have Mr. Pilecki looking at the library roof, perhaps we do that in conjunction with that, because I think it just makes sense. Whether or not we have the money to fund that, I don't know. We'll have to see what the cost is. But to continue to put money into an antiquated building with serious issues from the foundation up to the roof doesn't make sense. I don't want this to be a political issue, but I think it is a political issue because people just don't want what they did in the past to be criticized and questioned. And that's where we've gotten, is that people don't want it to be criticized and questioned, and that's where it's been. Now, volunteers, that'd be great if you had volunteers. They can come and help build that other building and not this building. But I see people, why? Is that any less realistic than having people go into a mold-infested building with a crumbling roof and a structure that is falling apart and have them work on that? I don't think it's any less realistic. You have people, now we speak of volunteerism and we have a tremendous volunteer base, but at the same time, it's hard getting people to come out and plant flowers and lay down mulch with beautification, and you want to get more people to come in and build a building. We've owned that building for over 2.5 years now. Where is the list of people that have come in and said, I'm going to donate time, I want to fix up that building? If you ask most people, they agree that building should come down. And if you ask our seniors, they never wanted to go into that building. That is the biggest misconception that is tried to be spread in this town, is that our seniors wanted to go into that building. They never wanted to go into that building. It's not big enough. The space they have at the temple is huge in comparison to that. We need to move forward. So yeah, I will move that we retain an architect to prepare plans to put an addition onto the library that can serve as a community center.
How much money are we putting into capital?
I think before you move that, we have to get pricing.
Yeah.
Can we move to get pricing, just like we got pricing to knock it down, and then we can kind of decide on it? I think that's...
This would come under the engineering operating budget, Mayor.
Or do it through that.
Can I modify your motion? We don't need to go to design plans. What we need to do is we need conceptual plans for the budget estimate. And compare that, like I've said all along, compare that with the cost of fixing this building and see on a dollar per square foot basis what makes more sense to do. Does it make more sense to pour money into this building, or does it make sense to do an add-on to the library, which all it has to be is a large meeting room, that's what you're looking to do, compared to them worrying about upstairs, downstairs, lists for bathrooms. It's not a prudent spending of taxpayers' money to continue to pour money in a building that's that deep.
I'm not talking about taxpayer money.
But the building eventually is going to need money. What they're going to do is they're doing cosmetic work. They're not doing a complete structural rehab of this building. They're not going to rerun the whole new electrical system. They're not going to put a whole new HVAC system in. They're not going to put in air conditioning units. They're not going to put in full bathrooms. That's not what they do. If you look at all the project descriptions they do, there's nothing to that extent. And if they do some of this work. Again, what's the time frame on this? You know, I've worked on Habitat for Humanity. I've worked on the same house 2 summers in a row, and those are small projects. To get volunteers every weekend is a big undertaking. It's
Big, it is a big undertaking.
So I would agree that we should let's get a conceptual plan from the architect and with a cost estimate, and then we can make a educated decision. But
How much would a conceptual estimate cost us?
we'd have to ask the architect.
I mean, like a ballpark.
I couldn't say. I don't want to put numbers. I don't know.
But, I mean, if I may, I get the idea of comparing, but the comparison isn't even close, because that building is so small. To renovate it without any sort of addition, I don't see where you're going with it. That's my problem with it. That's why last week I moved that we get some pricing on knocking it down, because I imagine it fixed up, and even if you made it the nicest thing ever, it's still very small. And that whole parcel that we own, in my mind, I'm picturing a blank slate. And if I was picturing a blank slate there, no American Legion, no cultural center, and no library, what would I want there for this town? And that's how I'm picturing it, and saying, okay, well, what would I want to be there? Would I want 3 separate buildings, one small one a little bit bigger, one, decent size? Or would I want one nice center where we can kind of house stuff and have different organizations come? And my mind always goes to having a nice one building that everything is in there, it's nicely done, it has the space that our town potentially needs for these different groups that can come in and use. And that's where I need to go. Is it going to cost us money? Maybe there's grant money out there, but if you're going to put something there that's going to be permanent for a very, very, very long time, why not put it in the place that we think is the best suited for this town, and not just go to fix up one little piece that I just don't think makes any sense? And that's why I moved
I agree with you, John.
But
it's 8 o'clock,
Alan has
we
the floor. We have to go into public session.
All right.
Just one comment, because I think what we're being accused of is not doing due diligence. I don't know how much more due diligence we can do. We've had the architect come in numerous times and give us his opinion. But if they want to see a side-by-side, dollar-per-dollar comparison to do this, it serves both purposes to do a conceptual plan, and that's what I'm saying. I agree with what your characterization of the existing building is.
All right, we're going to go into our 8 o'clock meeting. Oh, that's right. Motion to adjourn the work session.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, here's our 8 o'clock meeting. Let's stand for a moment.